Okay, good evening. Thank you all for joining us for this live stream. I have the privilege of talking to my friend, Dr. Michael Haykin, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me this evening and to have this conversation. I hope you had a blessed Lord's Day.
I did. Thank you. Yeah, great to be with you.
Of course, we want to talk about our friendship. And we have done a number of projects together over the year, but I was looking at my bookshelf. I have a Dr. Haykin section in my book in my library here. And on a few shelves, I've counted dozens. I really lost count. I heard you interviewed recently and you were asked how many books you've written or contributed to. And I think your answer was, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I've got a list of books edited, books written, articles, but yeah, it's probably somewhere around 70 books.
70 books. Wow. I have dozens here on my shelf, and they're all a great encouragement. And anyone who's read them has been encouraged and helped by not only the historical scholarship, but you truly write for the church. And you equip us well to think about issues that are perennial issues in the history of the church. Now, having written as many books as you've written, it should come as no surprise to anyone. The odds are that I would have had to have contributed or been participant in some of those books. Just simply, probably everybody watching has also been a contributor or participated in some volume that you've been involved with, because that's just where the odds are. But no, seriously, we met. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I believe we met at the first T4G, which would be 2006, I believe.
That's correct. Yep.
And we'd been corresponding regarding doing a THM, and you'll have to tell me how that connection started on email, because I forget that. But we first physically met. I can actually remember the meeting. During one of the breaks at T4G, in one of the corridors, where it wasn't in the Center then, it would have been the Convention Center?
The Galton House. It was on the Galton House. It was on that second floor hallway, and they have a little alcove
That's right.
Where some couches are. Exactly. I remember that moment. It must have really horrified you. We only corresponded by email, and now you meet this Tennessee hillbilly. You hear my accent for the first time. Of course, I'd had the privilege of hearing your lectures online. Now, I came to know about you through my brother, Jeremy. Of course, you know Jeremy. He's probably watching or will watch this. Jeremy had told me about your blog, and you had a blog that was going then, Historia Ecclesiastica. And I think that was just done on your own, or was that done through Toronto Baptist Seminary?
No, it's my own. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's when blogs first started,
Right.
So there was a template you could easily use. So
yeah, like Blogger or WordPress or something like that.
It was WordPress or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, he told me about you. I had finished my MDiv. I was pastoring in East Tennessee. I wanted to continue studying, but I felt called to stay where I was. So I reached out to you after my brother told me about you, and I looked at your website. I saw your role at Toronto Baptist Seminary, and you had a THM program that looked like that could be done through distance. And so we started corresponding about that, and you recommended several topics to me and for potential study, because I'd asked that question. And one of those was Hercules Collins, which I eventually did some work on. But that's how that conversation happened. And then we met when we were at Together for the Gospel. So then we met and we discussed various things about the THM. But for those who know Dr. Haykin, I'll just say this about him, which is just so impressive about him, is that he continues to invest in people. And he would take someone like me, unknown and untested, and give me a lot of opportunities. You gave me the opportunity to work with you on the volume devoted to the service of the temple, which was selections of the writings of Hercules Collins. And you remember that series that was a part of?
Yeah, that was a series that RHB put out, Reformation Heritage Books, and RHB is still putting out books in that series. More recent, and Samuel Rutherford. So
very good. Yeah, so thank you for that opportunity, and that's obviously the first thing I had published, and to be able to do that with you was a tremendous blessing to me. That was part of, went along with the THM studies that I was doing with you. In fact, that was part of one of the major assignments, to read through all of the works of Hercules Collins and mine those for those selections. And so it's a privilege to work together with you on that, and that helped me get started in a number of ways. And then we were, you were making the transition to Southern Seminary around that time, 2007, I think. You'd been adjunct, and you came as a full, probably not the technical term, but as a professor, actually for the seminary in 2007.
I interviewed in 2006, actually. So I did come as full professor, but it would have been a contractual appointment.
Okay, so we were doing you'd come as professor, and you brought with you the Andrew Fuller Center for Baptist Studies. You'd had that under the auspices of Toronto Baptist Seminary, something similar, and I think something continues in Canada as well now, I think.
We have an office in Canada. It's now at the Heritage Seminary and Bible College, and we do 2 events a year. We do a small thing in the spring, and we do a bit of a larger thing. It's one person. This coming year, Lord willing, if we can gather, we're going to have Carolyn Weber, who's a C.S. Lewis scholar, and she wrote a book, kind of a takeoff of Lewis, Surprised by Oxford, about her experience.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Love that book. Yeah.
And then next year, Lord willing, we'll have Matt Boswell.
Okay.
He's going to come up, and it's a very low key thing. We do a talk on the Friday night, and then Saturday there's about 35 church leaders are invited to a breakfast, a brunch, and he'll do another talk there, more focused, and do a Q&A and a way of encouraging church leaders. We offer it for free to the church leaders; they don't pay. And so, but now at Southern, we do obviously the big conference. This year was planned, we were going to do Angels, the history of angels. Because of the whole pandemic, we've scaled it back, and it'll be a Zoom. It'll be a Zoom conference, and there'll be 5 papers.
And that
we'll do it in one day.
That's this fall?
Yeah, it'll be September the 25th, Friday, September 25th.
Okay.
So we'll have a brother named Corneliu Samuț from Romania, who will be speaking on Augustine and the patristic tradition on angels. And then David Hogg from Christ Baptist Church in North Carolina on Aquinas and the medieval tradition. Herman Selderhuis from Apeldoorn. He's the president of the seminary in Apeldoorn in Holland on Calvin and Luther. And then we have Dustin Bench, who by that point, Dustin is still here on the States, but he'll have taken up he's already started his position as provost of Union College of School of Theology of Wales.
Right.
So he'll be doing something on Edwards and the evangelical tradition. And then finally, Tom Nettles will be speaking on Spurgeon and the kind of how Baptists have thought about angels.
Wow. That's an incredible topic, and from a very different perspective than usually treated, probably.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get a larger audience in some ways because it'll be Zoom and we'll advertise it. There'll be a minimal cost, something like $25 for the day, and so it's just to maintain some continuity.
Yeah.
Next year, Lord willing, we hope to do the first of three major conferences on the Council of Nicaea on Nicene Trinitarianism,
Mm,
and we've got a fabulous lineup for 2021, Lord willing.
that's fantastic. Those conferences are great. You and I worked together on those for a number of years,
Mhm.
probably yes, 8 or 10 years. We were working together on putting those conferences. 2008, maybe when I started helping you with the Andrew Fuller Center through about 2015, maybe. So
Yep.
however many years that is, we work together. It's a great privilege to put on those conferences. You've always been able to bring in some of the best scholars on whichever topic you're addressing. You've been able to bring those in, and it's really in many ways one of a kind academic conference. It's also, I think, valuable to pastors and lay people who are interested in digging into these topics. And we also,
Yeah, I don't think none of our Baptist seminaries, sister seminaries, have anything that is akin to it. Fuller Seminary has that thing they do out in California on applied theology or analytical theology or something like that. Oliver Crisp was pretty big in it.
Hmm.
So they have something like that. They've done Christology, pneumatology over the years. But in terms of our geographical locale, there really is probably nothing comparable, and so it's been a great privilege to have this as an ongoing academic resource available for students and for the church.
Hmm.
We normally have about 120 who come to it, and there's some kind of regulars who look forward to it. So this year will be a bit of a disappointment that we can't gather physically, but we hope that the content that'll be delivered via Zoom or that sort of technology will be helpful.
Yeah, sounds like it will be, and maybe have a wider reach. You've been doing a lot of conferences on Saturdays on various topics. Tell us a little bit about that and how people can find out more about those.
Yeah, these are what you might describe as webinars, a word that I didn't even know probably 3 or 4 years ago. And it's a seminar that's done on the web. It's through Zoom technology normally, and H&E, a publisher, who's a publishing company based out of Peterborough in Ontario, Reformed Baptist company. They are really kind of doing the hosting. But I have done a few. I did one with Nick Abraham and a church in Northern Ohio, not far from Cleveland, on Jonathan Edwards, and then did one for a larger conference in Peterborough. We had people from Australia, Ireland. But yeah, the ones that I've done 2 or 3 now with H&E. We just finished one on Saturday. We did looking at the thought of what did we do Saturday? Oh, yeah, defending the doctrine of the Trinity in the 4th century. And then we're doing one at the end of the month on Augustine and the fall of the Roman Empire. How you do theology in a time of cultural collapse.
That might have some relevance today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about this reading Andrew Fuller? Is that filled up yet?
Yeah, that's really like a course. I think I was inspired by, I think it was Crawford Gribben I saw is doing something similar with some people on reading John Owen.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, I'd love to do this with a group of people who would be interested. So there's about 10 of us. And we've done two times we've met. And we're going to do 18 sessions in all, and an hour on Monday nights, Thursday nights, all through June and July. And we're going to take about a dozen texts of Andrew Fuller. So this coming week, and we're going to do them chronologically. This coming week, we're looking at his Confession of Faith, and then we'll look at one of his first sermons, some of his circular letters, like one of them on baptism, his sermon on Christian patriotism, dealing with the Napoleonic Wars, and work all the way to the end where we deal with his circular letter on taking care of orphans and widows of ministers. So what I'm doing is distributing questions ahead of time, so they read the questions, and so it'll be a discussion, and then discussion of what the text says, means, how to read it properly, but also then, what application does this have for us today?
Yeah, that sounds great. Those who are participating in that are really blessed by it. When I was working, after I came to work with you at Southern and really, you gave me the opportunity, by the way, to do a PhD by allowing me to work with you, the Andrew Fuller Center. Otherwise, it was kind of out of my reach. And the Lord just opened that door. We were in 2000. It was, I think, 2007. We were in Charleston together at a conference.
Yeah.
That may be the second time we met, and it was a great venue for a conference on Baptist history. Remember where we were?
Yeah, we were in First Baptist. And did you give a paper at that time, or?
I did. I believe we collaborated on a paper. Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I forget what it was.
Must have been on spirituality, Baptist spirituality.
Yeah.
And then I think I did a bio on John Gill.
Yes, you did. Yeah. We published a volume of those proceedings, and so whatever we did is in that book. I have it on the shelf, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But
was that the second time that we met?
I think that was the second time we met. And then you asked me then to consider coming to Southern to help you with the Andrew Fuller Center, and that opened up the door for me to be able to do that. And of course, changed my life in a lot of ways. I came to Kentucky and became pastor here in Frankfort, where I've been for 12 years now. And so just amazing providence how God put that all together. And thank you for your role in that. And
well, yeah, you're an enormous help, and I think laid a foundation for the centers being able to do those conferences, because logistically, I mean, it's one thing to invite speakers, but the logistics were challenging. And you were enormous help in that regard, and really kind of helped put the conference on the map.
Oh, it's
so now it's
Dustin
Bench has been involved in that in recent days, and but you really kind of laid the foundations.
Well, it's an honor you think about the people picking up at the airport, David Bevington, and the who's who of Thomas Kidd, the who's who of evangelical historians and Baptist scholars and other, I could name a number of people. I met Stephen Ewell through that, who's become a tremendous friend, and so many people that I've been able to build a relationship through that experience. You're one of the first things I owned that you were a part of was a set of books, the British Particular Baptist series that Particular Baptist Press has done, and let me see if I can get that up on the screen. Now that is in 5 volumes now. And
yeah, there are 5 volumes. Particular Baptist Press now has 5 volumes. Originally, it was projected as 3. Oh, lovely! That's really.
Yeah, so we had we had 3. Now, we're talking 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. When I was just learning about you and had an interest in this period, obviously, and I bought the 3 volumes, the original 3 volumes. What you see pictured there has the revised volume 1. And to me, this was just like almost like a holy grail of Particular Baptist studies. So beautifully, they're just beautiful volumes. You can see there, those of you watching. And just very impressive 3 volumes, individual essays on figures, 17th, 18th, 19th century British Particular Baptist. One of the amazing things, sometimes when I look at these on the shelf, I'm just really amazed, because you asked me to do in this revised volume 1 a paper, an essay chapter on Hercules Collins, who I did my work on under your influence. And just because of how important that series was and how highly esteemed I esteem those 3 volumes. That's one of the great honors to be included in an updated edition of that. So thank you for letting me do that. I think I did one
Welcome.
on Piggott as well, but you're continuing to publish that's extended out to 5 volumes now. And you've been the editor of that series, and I think you're done with it now. Are you doing a 6th volume on?
No, I mean we did do the 5, and the last 2. Terry Wolliver joined me, who's just recently gone to be with the Lord, and Gary Long, the president of Particular Baptist Press, recently contacted me about a number of items, and one was, should we put that on the shelf or try to continue it? And I'm thinking, because the volume 6 was going to deal with 20th century figures, and I'm thinking that probably we need to leave it to the one side at this point.
Yeah.
So, but the 5 volumes are lovely. They Particular Baptist Press do a great job.
They do. Yeah. That Terry Wolliver, greatly missed already, and just a tremendous scholar. He did not have a PhD or?
No, he had I know he had a BA in history. He might have had an MA in history, but I don't think so.
But in terms of someone who figured out how to get into the sources, do primary source research.
Yeah, he was self-taught. He was offered an honorary DD through Toronto Baptist Seminary. And it says a lot for, I think, Terry's character. He was very humble, and I mean, really very humble. And he refused it. He didn't feel he deserved it.
Yeah.
But if anybody deserved it, Terry did, because he had supremely showed just a skill in in research and ability to kind of tap into various unknown reservoirs of Baptist history and bring out some great treasures.
Yeah, and he helped me with that, and things I've utilized in my research going forward, and accessing things like census material and newspapers, those kinds of things were really his specialty, getting some of those untapped sources sometimes that some of us can kind of skim with a primary source material of what was written, but not really dig into the social background. And he was really helpful in getting to some of that material.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was a very dear brother.
Yeah. So we did. You helped me so much with when I was going through the PhD program. I had come to study with you. And because the seminary was wanting you to focus on supervising in the patristic area, because that's where your original training was, you kind of have multiple expertise areas that you've developed over the years in terms of evangelical 18th, 19th centuries, the British Baptist 18th, 19th century, as well as 17th century English Baptist. But your original specialty was in the patristic era. That's where you did your doctoral work on Basil. And say anything about that or?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I did my doctoral work on the fathers, Basil and Athanasius in the 4th century, and their pneumatology. And your subject that you choose in a doctoral degree kind of determines what you'll write and publish on for the next, really probably 10 years once you start that degree. And the degree takes 3 to 5 years, and then you're really kind of in that area or in that niche for 3 to 5 more years, because if you want to change areas, you really have to spend time to getting another area up. So during the 80s, I spent most of my time really in patristics. I was beginning to move into 18th century Baptist thinking. I initially tried to get into the Puritans, partly because I had become theologically Calvinistic, Reformed in the early 80s, and everybody was talking about the Puritans, so I gravitated there initially. But The 18th century I find much more amenable in some ways, or more attractive. The 18th century writers are easier to read, I think. Secondly, it's a period of revival.
Mm.
And also the sort of challenges that we have today in terms of intellectual, those are really beginning to make their presence felt in the 18th century. I mean, one may be able to trace back the kind of challenges, with secularism prior to the 18th century into the 17th century world. But it's really the 18th century that's beginning to have to wrestle with those things. It's a period of revolutions that have kind of continued all through the 19th into the 20th century. It's a period that wrestles with the fundamental issues regarding human freedom, which is not as much to the fore in the 17th century. So all that to say, I ended up gravitating towards the 17th century. And I remember around 1985 picking up some volumes of Andrew Fuller, and I was hooked. And but when I was hired at Southern, so by the 90s, I was really kind of writing pretty heavily in 18th century. And I did this book, 94, which really, I look back now and I see it as a kind of second PhD.
Right.
In the sort of research
that's on John Sutcliffe, friend and fellow early missionary supporting Particular Baptist, friend of Andrew Fuller.
Right. So, but when I was hired at Southern, I was hired to do patristics because they didn't need another 18th century Baptist guy. They had Dr. Nettles, who is a world expert in 18th century Baptist. He had done both sides of the Atlantic. At that time, they had David Puckett, who was doing, he had gravitated from his research area of Calvin to 18th century William Wilberforce. And I'm trying to think who else would have been there at the time when I was hired, who would have been doing Baptist history.
Dr. Wills was doing American
Oh,
Baptist.
right. Yeah, Dr. Greg Wills.
As well.
So they didn't need another Baptist historian. What they needed was a patristic scholar, because Craig Blazing, who had been there, had gone to be provost at Southwestern. So that's why when you came into the program, you were asked to study under Dr. Nettles.
That's right. Well, patristic scholars are really relatively rare and exclusive in the evangelical world. And I think that's changing. And a lot of that's due to the supervision that you've done of a number of wonderful PhD students who've come out of Southern who've focused in the patristics. And so we're seeing a lot of these guys scattered out across evangelical educational institutions now. And that's really encouraging to see. Yeah, that's right. I came to study with you and thinking I was going to study with you, but the faculty suggested that I study with Dr. Nettles, since that was his area especially, and who can turn down Dr. Nettles as a wonderful scholar. He's a wonderful second choice, and he had already long been a hero of mine, and I loved his work and his books, and so it was a privilege to work with him. But you came right alongside me and helped me every step of the way in the PhD. So in one sense, I had two supervisors in terms of the help that I received. So thank you. We did a book on, we took one of Hercules Collins, actually his first work, the Catechism, where he revised the Heidelberg Catechism, and we edited that and released it from Reformed Baptist Academic Press, made it readable and accessible. And that was a treat to work on as well and get that material out. And a lot of churches are using that. I think from what I hear, that's still being widely.
Good. That's great.
There's the cover of that. We were able to work on that together, and just getting some of this 17th century material into hopefully where it is useful for people today. And that's a book that's still I think I'm going to give away. I reached out to the publisher recently, and my friend Richard Barcelos, who oversees Reformed Baptist Academic Press, and was able to get several volumes. They're on the way now. I'm probably going to give some of those away. So if you guys comment, if you don't have that book and you'd like a copy of it, I'm going to give a couple away here soon. So comment down below, and I'll be glad to get you a copy of that. And you just have to commit that you're gonna look at it, you're gonna read it, and I'll be glad to share that with you. It was a fun treat to work on because it's the Baptist revision of the Heidelberg Catechism, which is a Heidelberg Catechism. If you know that catechism, one of the most beautiful, encouraging documents coming out of the Reformation period. And Hercules fixed it. He made it Baptist. He baptized it, and so even gooder now. That's a tremendous thing. Here's something you might remember that didn't work on this directly with you, but Ian Clary, one of your former assistants, did the role in Canada, like what I did for you at Southern. He and I collaborated together to put together this work, and we were able to present that to you. Was that, what year would that have been? 2016 maybe? Or 15?
No, that would have been 2013.
2013, wow.
Yeah, because that was 2013, and it was at ETS that year.
That's right, in Baltimore, and we surprised you with this volume. You had, okay, you can tell now, it's been 7 years. You had no idea really that this was going on, right?
I had absolutely no idea. Yeah, it was a complete total surprise. My wife and I remember coming down for dinner,
yeah.
And we were meeting with Austin Walker and his wife Mai for dinner, and we kind of walked around a corner to where we were going to sit, and lo and behold, there were about 40 people, including yourself and Ian. Dr. Moeller,
Dr. Moeller was there, Ligon Duncan,
Tom Nettles,
Fred Zaspel.
Yeah, it was quite a surprise, very humbling.
We asked people to contribute to this volume, and I don't think no one said no. I mean, they were so happy to honor you and contribute to this volume. And the endorsements that we received, it really spoke. Obviously, it wasn't about Ian and or me. It was about the opportunity to honor the scholarship that you've done, and that was a real privilege to get to participate in that, to be a part of that. And that was on your 60th birthday, and correct. So you've had a few more since then. I'll let the viewers do the math and figure that out. I was thinking about,
how long had you been at work on that?
Oh, we'd worked a couple of years on it. We had gone up to
it's amazing you kept it silent for 2 years. I mean, I did not hear a peep.
Well, we had to threaten some people, but Ian and I went, I don't know if you ever knew this, we went up to Alistair Begg's church, Parkside, up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
He had a connection there with a staff person. I can't remember the connection. And they allowed us to use a room in their church building. And we went up there and met together for a couple of days and worked through some things.
Cool.
Where we were working on that, editing the volume. So we're trying to get on the same page of how we edited. So that was fun. I was thinking about this. I didn't even remember all the things we'd contributed to together, but I realized there's a couple of things that are just coming out that we've both been a part of. And what did you do in this volume?
Well, I did a hymn on Charles Wesley's the link between the Lord's table and revival.
Okay.
And so I did and I believe also included in that is the hymn on that Charles Wesley wrote in the 1750s for the conversion of Muslims.
Really?
I believe so, but I could be wrong. That one may not be in here.
Yeah, I did the chapter on "And Can It Be?"
Excellent.
And that this volume, well, in many ways, it came out of a PhD seminar that you taught on Puritan and evangelical spirituality. And Brian Najat, and I don't want to butcher his name, Najat was in that class. He did a paper. I did a paper. Several others, and that kind of formed the heart of this book. And then, of course, we were able to get some other contributors, or they were able. Chris and Brian were able to get some other contributors. So it's a really, I haven't received my copy yet, but it looks like it's going to be a really nice volume on the
Agreed.
on Wesley. And and then we also, one more thing, and we need to wrap up. Thanks for your patience in having this conversation tonight. We also contributed this, and you had a big hand in helping this to go. But this is a volume we were able to honor another friend, Dr. Don Whitney, and Lexham Press has taken this and published it, and it's a volume called "The Spirit of Holiness: Reflections on Biblical Spirituality."
Is that out yet? I've not. Have you seen it? Have you got a copy?
No, it's not out till September.
Okay.
You've seen the cover though, right?
I have seen the cover.
Yeah, it's advertised now. It's
Okay.
I think you can find it on Amazon, pre-order it.
Okay, good.
You can pre-order from Lexham Press. So I'm not breaking any embargoes or anything here by putting it up. But that's got chapters by Dr. Moeller and Dr. Haykin.
What was yours on?
Mine was on spirituality of persecution.
Okay.
A Baptist theology of persecution. So
good.
Let's look at 17th century Baptist. And so for some reason, Dr. Haykin, let's say, I don't know if you can see on the cover, but it's contributions. I can't actually read it, but I think it's contributors include Albert Moeller Jr., Joel Beakey, Michael A.G. Haykin. Somehow I didn't make the cover on that. I'm not sure how that happened. You're one of the big three, though, in terms of the ones that they knew would make people pick up the book and read it. And so I think it's turned out to be a good volume. And so we'll look forward to seeing that come out in September. Anyway, it's been a treat to, anybody who, I guess the bottom line of this, anybody who knows me, everything that I've been able to do academically, you can trace back to Dr. Haykin. So you can blame him or bless him, but I always want to express my gratitude. Thank you, Dr. Haykin.
Thank you.
Thank you for your friendship. We started out as email correspondence, and because of your graciousness, became collaborators, and then friends and partners in ministry. And we try to stay in contact and fellowship regularly. And thanks for taking the time to have this conversation. And
Must have been great.
Memory lane.
Yep, it's been great. Been very nice.
What are you working on before we wrap up?
Well, I'm working on the big project is the Andrew Fuller Works project, which is
that's another thing we're doing together. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing volume 17 in that, 16. And that was conceived back probably about 20 years ago. I began to realize that there really was a need for a critical edition of Fuller's works. We have 3 of the volumes out. This one, for example, is the diary of Fuller. Yep. And they're very attractive volumes. And the one that I'm working on is Fuller's Calvinistic and Socinian Systems Examined and Compared. Dr. Nettles edited it, and it's a huge volume. It's 500 pages in text, but over and above that, it's 5 editions came out in Fuller's lifetime. And the kind of modus operandi that we're using is all of the verbal changes that take place have to be noted, so that a student of Fuller's thought can just at one glance can see all of the additions, any sort of changes or extractions or subtractions or additions that were made, all in the footnotes. But that's very time consuming and laborious. So that's the main project right now. I have a book with Lexham Press on the Lord's Supper. I'm also being slated to, there's a new historical commentary coming out on the Bible, dealing with Reformation and post-Reformation thinkers, mostly post-Reformation thinkers. So I'm responsible for writing up the notes for Ruth, 1-2 Samuel, 1-2 Kings. So it's commentators like Owen, Baxter, 17th, early 18th century, kind of what we call orthodoxy, Reformed Orthodoxy, and High Orthodoxy.
Wow, that's awesome. Who's publishing that?
Crossway.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you for your contributions. Like we talked about earlier, over probably 70 volumes authored, edited, or contributed to, and then you're still working. And even if you've done nothing else, this project, if you've done none of those 70 volumes, the Critical Works of Andrew Fuller, I think, is a lifetime accomplishment. And so thank you for that. And I trust that if the Lord carries his return, that will be something that generations will be grateful for.
Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you. This has been great. Yeah.
Thank
Every
you.
blessing.
God bless you.